Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started in just about 2 minutes. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Northern Now, the new digital event series presented by the NMU Alumni Association for all of our alumni and friends. My name is Kylie Bunting. I am the digital engagement architect for alumni relations here at NMU, and I'm really glad that you all have joined us for tonight's conversation. We're excited to continue this series with a chat on lifelong learning with some of our amazing NMU staff, students, and alumni. First, I just want to talk about a couple of logistics. If you can use the Q&A section for any questions for the panelists, we're unable to see and hear you during this webinar format, but we certainly want to hear from you. Carly Harrington, who's moderating tonight's event, will be monitoring the Q&A section. So anything that you want to share with our panelists, questions, comments, please make sure that you send them through the Q&A function. You can also use the chat function at the bottom of your screen to chat with your fellow alumni. Just a quick note on that though, there is a drop-down menu to send chats to all panelists or all panelists and attendees. The default is all panelists, so that means that whatever you send will just go to those of us that you see on here. Make sure that you change that to all panelists and attendees, so whatever you send is also going to everybody else who's tuning in from across the globe. Couple of save the dates. So Northern Now takes place the second Wednesday of the month, so you can mark your calendars. We're really excited to have some of our education professionals join us on March 10th. We will have an amazing panel of alumni and professors from the NMU School of Education who will be discussing the importance of relationships and creating a strong network throughout your educational and your professional career. You can actually sign up for that right now. You can go to our website, nmu.edu/alumni/events. Also, after I'm finished chatting here and turn it over, I will send the link to register in the chat. So if you'd like to get signed up right away, you can do that now. And then, of course, just a quick note, don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find events, you can find updates on your fellow alumni, university news, and things like that. So keep in touch with us that way. So now I would like to welcome our moderator for the evening, Carly Harrington, who is a 2011 MPA graduate and also the current Global Campus Assistant Director. Thank you, Carly, for joining us and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to introduce tonight's panelists and excited for them to each share their unique perspectives on lifelong learning and when to explore the right education at the right time. First, I would like to welcome NMU's Director of Global Campus Operations, Brad Hamill, who is a three-time NMU graduate, earning a bachelor's degree in 1999, an MPA in 2014, and an EDS in 2019. Brad, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Thanks, Carly. Yeah, like I said, I'm Brad Hamill. I've been with Northern now for a little over 21 years full time, and I did my undergrad here. So that gives me almost a little over 25 years here. I've been at Northern. It's been a great experience. I've spent my time here in primarily three different roles. I started out in athletics right away. I spent a third of that time in alumni relations, so I'm glad to be helping out in this series, and I can understand everything that goes into what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish. And then this third of my lifetime here has been in the global campus operations side of things, and it's really great to be part of the system here, where being part of the students and their journey and trying to see them kind of go through that cycle of learning and things that they're trying to do and accomplish, and then also being part of the Alumni Association before this, and now working with the Global Campus alumni and understanding the things they need in the education that they're looking for. It's really been a rewarding experience working with the Global Campus here now.
Thank you, Brad. Now I'd like to welcome NMU's Director of Continuing Education and Workforce Development, Stephanie Zadroga Langlois, who is also a proud NMU graduate with a Bachelor of Arts degree in 1996 and a Master of Arts degree in 1998. Stephanie, please tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you, Carly. Right, so I am the Director of Continuing Education and Workforce Development. I have been here for about 4.5 years in that role. Before that, I have about 15 years experience in the staffing and workforce development world, both private and then through the state as well. So I've kind of worked in all the different areas that it takes to have somebody find a job, connect with the job, be in the job. And this role that I'm in at Northern is, to me, the most important, because it's what you do when you have the job, and that's to keep building your training, keep your skills growing so that you can grow with your job or grow into the next job that's waiting for you. So training has always been a passion of mine, and it's a big part of moving forward through your career.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Now I'd like to welcome alumna and former Global Campus student Morgan Waller. Morgan is a young emerging executive with S&P Global and graduated from NMU in 2016 with a bachelor's degree and her MPA in 2018. Morgan, please tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, thank you for having me. So yes, I work now for S&P Global Ratings as a financial analyst, and I spend a lot of my free time doing a lot of volunteer work on different boards, such as my high school board currently right now. Thornton Fractional District 215 is located in Chicago. That's where I'm from. And then I also sit on a non-for-profit board, which is the National Black MBA Association. And basically my work just entails bringing diversity and inclusion to a lot of these different boards here. And then finally, I also sit on the Alumni Association for Northern Michigan University.
Awesome. Thanks, Morgan.
Yep.
And last but not least, Kevin Storr, a current Global Campus student and Executive Director at Portage Health Foundation. Kevin, please tell us a little more about yourself. Oh, Kevin, you're muted.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Just saying, as you mentioned, I'm the Executive Director of the Portage Health Foundation here in Hancock, Michigan. I was born and raised in Ontonagon, and I moved to the Copper Country about 25 years ago, which somewhat coincides with my career in nonprofit. I've been in nonprofit in either senior or executive leadership for about the last 25 years. As you can imagine, in my role at the Portage Health Foundation, I get to be involved in a lot of different facets of our community. Primarily, I get to help other community organizations and groups achieve their mission through funding support. What a lot of people probably wouldn't know or may not be aware of is that also in this role, I have an opportunity to support those organizations in our community in many other ways, including strategic planning, organizational development and capacity building, and other ways that improve the organization's functional capacity and their performance. So, this is just one of the many reasons that I chose to pursue a degree in workplace leadership. The curriculum has helped me dust off some old skill sets and certainly gain some new perspectives and approaches to the work I currently do here in our community. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, welcome everyone. I think we're ready to move on to the question portion of this panel. So we have some questions prepared, but as Kylie mentioned in the introduction, if anyone has any questions for us from the audience, we would love that. Please drop those in the Q&A. But until those start rolling in, I'm just gonna go with some pre-prepared questions that we have for you guys. Okay, let's get started with the different types of
Oh, did Carly pause for everybody else?
Yeah.
All right, we'll give her just a second to come back. The joys of Zoom.
That's right. Anyway, I know where she was going with
I was
that.
going to say, I think we know the question.
Yeah, we know
though.
that we know the question, so we can zoom right on, and then when we get to a different point, I'll jump off and see how she's doing next door. So anyway, where we were heading was the different kinds of educational opportunities that not just Northern has, but what are typically out there that we see. So the first one is the degree seeking or the traditional college pathway that we know of, which is my primary role, is the degree seeking student who wants to continue on with their education either after high school, right away after high school, or anytime along their pathway in their education or their job experience or where they want to go. So the degree seeking is courses that you put together that end up in a credential at the end. So typically like a bachelor's degree is typically 120 credits. An associate's degree is half that, usually around 60 credits. So you take a compilation of courses that are part of the major, and then general education requirements that kind of round out your learning experience. So you have kind of a wide view of what's going on in the world, and you're really learning how to learn in that experience. So you're taking your education in high school, which is a little bit more focused, and now you're coming into higher education, where it can kind of go into two different tracks as well. There's applied degrees that are really focused on a job and a task and a skill that you're learning to do. And then there's more general degrees that are teaching you really expanding on learning how to learn, how to open your mind, and how to evaluate your surroundings and be better at what you're doing overall. And like I said, those usually end up in a credential or a degree, and that extends even to the graduate level and at the doctorate level. So everything pretty much stacks along the way. So you take your K-12 experience into college, into graduate school, and then into your doctorate level. So everything kind of stacks up, and you kind of take that path pretty much continuously along the way. And again, there's ways to stop in and out, and people will be taking breaks. I think we'll be talking about that later on. Everybody's journey is different. So it's okay to start right away. In Kevin's example, he started quite some time ago, decided that there was other things that were a priority, but he came back to it, and now he's finishing up that bachelor's degree. So that's kind of just a little bit about what a degree seeking student experiences, and then we're going to kick it off to Steph to talk a little bit about the non-degree or some of the classes that she's putting on.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. So in continuing education in my department, we're working with the non-degree or non-credit programs. And so a lot of what we do, I kind of divide it up into three different directions in a way. They're not that different, but in my world they are. So one of them would be that we spend a lot of time with the currently employed. So we're working closely with businesses, especially across the Upper Peninsula, who are looking to either reskill or upskill their employees. So that's a great way to show a lot of respect to your employees. It's also a great way for the employees to stay engaged and see that there's so much more to learn. So we can work with those companies, and we like build customized trainings that are going to address exactly what their specific needs are at that particular company. Because, you know, no two company is the exact same. On the flip side of that, we also offer a lot of trainings that would maybe involve a lot of similar businesses or industries who have the needs to have trainings throughout the year, whether it be to continue with a certification, recertify, stay in compliance with the state, whatever that might be. That could be something like a minor safety training, or social workers need continuing education hours. So that's where we can kind of cast a net and say, here's a training that we know a lot of you need, and it's going to help you continue in your jobs, and you're not going to have to miss a lot of work. We're going to get it done quick, and you'll be back being productive at work. And then the last tier is where we're looking at what the workforce needs. What's lacking? Are there a lot of jobs that we just can't fill? So then we're working with the people who might be career searchers or career changers, or even a dislocated worker. So someone who's switching careers and they didn't intend to. And so we try to put together trainings that would connect those people who are searching for work with jobs that are waiting to be filled, and it's just a struggle. A tangible example of that would be our truck driving school. It's just a good visible example. Obviously, truck driving has been a high demand job for a very long time locally, but also nationally. And there was just a real need for that training to be as available as possible. So we started that school to connect people who were looking for a career with a very, very good career. So that's kind of where we're at. But a lot of what we're doing is, you know, what Brad was talking about, that's going to involve a semester or 2 semesters or 3 semesters. And we're working with those people who they're looking for something in a shorter, quicker bite. So we'll be able to get them what they need and keep them in their job that they already have. Or like I said, in the truck driving example, get them into a new career.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. It looks like we have a question from the audience. Can the customized trainings be done online as well as those done face-to-face for our local area?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we had kind of shifted to try to address a lot of our trainings to be online because the UP is just big. We have 2 time zones, we have crazy weather, we have everything. So when we do a face-to-face training, that's not great if you're coming from the central time zone. That can really screw up a work day. So we had started to shift a lot of our offerings to online, and we're going to just completely increase that. COVID was a really good encouragement for us, I'll say, to continue putting offerings online. There are a lot of trainings that we offer that are just hands-on, and they always will be hands-on, and that might be a skilled trade, or that might be just some sort of compliance. We actually have some that you think could be online, but the state or the feds say absolutely not. They have to be a face-to-face training. So in those cases, we really, our hands are tied. But yes, a lot more are going to be online.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
At NMU, we see different types of learners, traditional and non-traditional. Morgan, can you describe your experience as a traditional student and then also what it was like as a global campus student?
Yes, absolutely. So as a traditional student, coming straight out of high school, going right into college, it was a big transition for me. Not knowing exactly what I want to study and where I want to go in life. So just traditionally, it was interesting, and I think I needed that interaction in person in order to just really learn about what I want to do. I think I enjoyed way more the global campus aspect when I got into my graduate degree. So for those that don't really know, I studied my undergrad as a traditional student and then did my graduate degree globally. And I think I enjoyed the global aspect of learning a lot more, just because with everything that I have going on, like I just said in my bio here, I'm doing all these boards and volunteer work. And it was just easier for me to log onto my computer. As a traditional student, I'm going to go back and forth here and just say maybe some of the pros and cons. I think as a traditional student, it was hard to, to focus. I think being so young, coming straight out of high school, going straight into college, and having so much uncertainty of what the world actually is, I needed that interaction with people, and it brought a lot of. I think I learned so much more being traditionally, but it benefit more being global, if that makes sense. Like, obviously learning and building those connections are great when you're in person, but then just the multitasking of learning and being able to work and do so much other things is great now that I'm older and doing all these other things. So I typically liked the global aspect of it. And then also you're networking with so many people from across the country. It's not just being, in a class with the same 15, 30 people every day. You're networking with people across the country from different time zones. So I think that is something that I experienced as, traditional and global.
Thanks, Morgan.
Yeah.
I'm an advisor in the Global Campus, and I definitely hear that from students who have, learned in both capacities, where they were on campus and then now are learning online. It can be really beneficial for people, or it's not for everyone too. So it's interesting to hear your perspective.
I'm sorry, I know we're going to move forward, but one thing, because I want to make it kind of conversational, it takes a lot to actually, be a global student. I mean, logging online is easy, right? But you have to interact. So I think you have to be like almost, what's the word I'm looking for? You have to really train yourself to tune in and to be there, present. And so I think that's a lot of times, where people fall off in the global world, not really focusing and being present. So that's a struggle.
Yeah, but I think it was probably an advantage for you when everything went online. Yeah, I think
Right.
it was a little bit of a leg up.
Yeah.
And we do see that a lot with the students, that they think online is going to be easier because it fits in their life, and they say, oh, it's just easier. I can just go on anytime I want. But then you really have to have that discipline to get in front of it, make sure you're checking all the boxes, doing all your work, and making sure you're attentive to the classwork and your goals. And I can imagine, Stephanie, it's the same way that's why some industries don't want online, because they want to make sure that the learner is focused, that they understand it, and they have to actually sign something on the way out, saying, I was here and I attended.
Yeah, and a lot of times an employer might require that the training is synchronous and not asynchronous, just for that sake. Like you have to be disciplined if it's right there and happening right now. So, and that would be online, but.
And a lot of times, and if you want to apply this to like the business aspect, a lot of times this is what we do in the workforce. We're literally going into our office or a corporate office and we're sitting in front of a computer all day. So it kind of prepares you in a way to train your mind for the workforce, essentially, because you are checking emails every day. You are conducting business virtually. So that's kind of interesting too. Like I said, right now I'm working for S&P Global, and that's kind of like my everyday schedule pre-pandemic. I'm logging onto a computer. So I don't know, it prepared me. So
Kevin, can you speak a little bit to your experience as a non-traditional student?
I would echo a lot of the sentiment and the points that Morgan made. I myself started as a traditional student right after high school, like a lot of kids. And I think one of the things that was a little different is my dad died when I was a teenager. And, in my immediate family, advancing my education was not necessarily something that was driven into me, and to the extent that after he passed, I was so worried about just let's get through school and get a job to support myself. I passed up some potential football scholarships to go because I didn't really understand the importance of that role and that opportunity. So I did. I went to school right after high school, and after the first year I withdrew because I found that I was working more than I was going to school, and I figured I would take a gap year and save some money. Well, that gap year turned into a 6-year gap, and I ended up working at Copper Range Mine in White Pine, and I don't regret that. To some of the extent that Morgan said, I think there was so many different opportunities that presented me in the workplace, working as a young man, in a, for the most part, a much older age demographic. I learned a lot about just human interaction, a lot about, processes that I didn't understand. And when I ended up going back, in fact, in 96, when the mine closed, I was one of 6 employees that was selected to help transition the other 1,148 employees into a new workplace or retraining. So I was helping facilitate, job training program act monies and stuff to get people back into college training or vocational training. And at that same time, I'm like, I really needed to consider, well, what am I doing for myself? So it was at that time I went back to pursue my education. And, Morgan, you mentioned how that prepares you getting into the workplace, transitioning from traditional to non-traditional. I was so used to working, overtime and 40, 50-hour weeks, 60-hour weeks. So when I went back to school, not only did everything just resonate with me, but I had that work ethic. I pounded out my 2-year degree in 11 months, 61 credits in 11 months, graduated with honors. And I attribute a lot of that to the work ethic and that fortitude that I developed while actually in the workplace. And the path since then has been, like a lot of non-traditional students, life takes over. I had intended to carry forward with the rest of my undergrad, marriage, kids, family, a new job, a promotion, new community. One thing leads to another, and the next thing you know, it's 5 years, 10 years, whatnot down the road. And there's been a number of points in time where I've gone back to start that education again and again. It's just life circumstances have always come up and interfered. And no different in 2018 when I started to come back, and I think it was about a week and a half after I started classes, we ended up with the Father's Day flood here. And I almost, withdrew because of the work that we had to do for our community. And I just said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to pull up my bootstraps and we'll get through this. But, I think, for other non-traditional students out there, whether you're just starting or you're going back, I just think it's important not to give up and recognize the important role that's going to play just for your personal development and satisfaction. And all those things that you go through are going to help prepare you for that re-enrollment, if you will, in the education system.
Yeah, we appreciate that, Kevin, that you stuck through it. I know, we've, between me and you having conversations earlier in it, and then, transitioning with Carly, even if you had to take a half semester off. So that's one of the nice things about, Northern and, all the classes that we offer. Sometimes they're half semester courses. So you can jump in and out kind of at any time. You're still able to take classes even if you take a semester off. So it's like you were always here. So you're always part of the family. And I think most institutions are that way. I would even say in Stephanie's shop, I'm sure she has many repeat customers that come back time after time because they know the quality of education that they're getting there. And to take some time off and get the education that you need at that exact moment, that kind of that just-in-time education is important too. Yeah.
Well, Brad, you mentioned earlier, the word discipline came up. And I would add to that there has to be an intent. And, the Global Campus community did a wonderful job. I think the structure of the coursework, your online chalkboard type systems and that made it easy for somebody, like a lot of people, we're busy, and, there's a lot of demands on your time, not only work related, but then family and whatnot. And, but there has to be that intention behind it if you're going to go back and make sure that you're staying focused. And to Morgan's point, it's what you do every day, but it's also that same thing where at the end of the night, sometimes you just want to take a time out and not do anything, and you have to make sure that you're staying on top of things. And I think the university has done a really good job to support the students within this program.
Yeah, good
Thanks,
point.
Kevin. So we have a follow-up question for Kevin from the audience. How were you able to structure some of your coursework to benefit your job or like advance your professional career? So maybe some things that you were able to do that helped you in your current role, or projects that you were able to take on and apply, things that you were learning in your classes.
I think one of the things that a lot of nonprofits, and I'm going to focus this on nonprofit work in particular, because that's where, the lion's share of my professional career has been. I think the problem with most nonprofits is that they run themselves like a nonprofit rather than like a for-profit business. And what I mean by that is they oftentimes use nonprofit designation and either low operating margins or no operating margins as an excuse to struggle. And instead, they should be looking at, solid business practices and performance indicators and evaluation metrics to really gauge how they're doing, what they're doing, how they're doing, and how their functional capacity is compared to actual mission delivery. So more directly to answer your question, some of the things that I've learned in the workplace leadership program, and I don't want to say maybe not even necessarily learned, but some things that were reaffirmed are the importance of measuring your progress and your actions to make sure that your efforts are being intentional and are being mission driven, but at the same time bringing some practical business approaches to making sure that you're being able to achieve those outcomes. And I know for a lot of the work that we do here, we're very outcome driven at the foundation. We don't run like a lot of foundations where you review an application, you write a check, and you're done. We spend a lot of time with our community partners, from all sectors, to really make sure that we have good root cause analysis, good reviews done, but most importantly, making sure that we have a good solid plan for the projects that we're funding, that they can execute, they can sustain, and that they're able to measure some successful outcomes when they're done. Because at the end of the day, we hold ourselves accountable to the community whose monies we're managing, and we want to make sure that we can convey that back to them, that we're doing a good job and they're getting an ROI for that investment. So there's countless ways that this experience and this journey that I've been on with the university has, whether it be a small aha moment or just a completely new concept that's been presented to me, has helped me, and not only helped me here at the foundation, but has helped me help other organizations to be better. And again, improving their capacity and their outcomes.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the questions from the audience. So we have a question for Stephanie. I have heard about the cyber initiative at NMU and the cyber hub that recently opened on campus. Are there any virtual events or courses that you could tell us about if we are interested in developing cyber skills?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Upper Peninsula Cybersecurity Institute is another good example within our continuing education department of a lot of opportunities at the non-credit level. So there's a lot of different kind of career path trainings that you might want to go on to if you're looking to get into the cyber world in an entry level manner. But if you have a job that you need to, like I said, reskill or upskill, you want to get another certification if you're in cyber, that's all through the Institute. So I would recommend, to find out the here and now, is to go to our website and get familiar with that. The Cybersecurity Institute always is posting, keeping things updated. They also have something called CAT Tracks. And so that's going to kind of cover a different element of cyber, because there's so many different ways to look at cyber. Different audiences might be interested in different topics. But I think that some of the good examples of maybe the non-credit paths for the Institute are like taking certified ethical hacking or Security Plus or things like that. Like those are courses that you can take. Most of them will probably be offered online for a long time. I don't think we'll ever go back. Sometimes we would like you in the classroom, but the Institute is a really good way to kind of cover, as in the title, the entire UP, so that everybody can have that cyber training.
And to build off that, Steph, I'll add, we are working, as the traditional campus side, working with the Cyber Institute to take those certifications that the students are getting for the non-credit, stack those up and put those into a package where they can count towards degree seeking students' experience as well. So you can trade those certificates in for either a course or a credit, or a process called credit for prior learning, where we can kind of evaluate what you learned in the Institute, apply that to a portion of a course, and then backfill any knowledge that you might need, and then give you the credit for the course that would account towards either 4-credit accredited certification or an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree as well. So, we're really good. We're trying to be good about taking anything that you learn anywhere and applying it to something else. So, I think it can go in reverse as well. So even if you're here for a degree or taking a degree someplace else, explore those non-credit options like the Cybersecurity Institute or some other things that extended or continuing education might offer. And somehow you can apply that to your coursework as well.
Absolutely.
And use those things hand in hand to try to navigate and get the best experience that you want out of the education.
Yep, absolutely. That's a great point.
Thank you. Do you have anything at all for those of us who truly want lifelong learning once they have entered the world of retirement?
We do actually. So there's a division within the university called the Northern Center for Lifelong Learning. It is a great organization, and you can get to that through the continuing education page of the Northern website, but you can also just search NCLL and you'll find a lot of information. But that is absolutely about that lifelong learning for, towards the retired audience. They do so many different programs throughout the year. Anybody can go. It's not a restricted organization by any means. And if you ever look at their long catalog of what they offer, it's everything from what should you be feeding the birds in your bird feeder to, do you want to go build something? Do you want to go tour something? It's so active and it's so impressive. So that's a great opportunity there as well. Lots of different ways to continue your learning.
Absolutely. Another avenue to get some classes would be our Educational Access Network, the EAN. They do have a suite of courses that you can take, all self-paced, that you can learn anything from accounting to history to, diabetes care. I know there's a whole suite of health courses in EAN as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's different avenues within either Northern or, some of the other initiatives that we have here on campus that are available to anybody. And a lot of these, like the EAN, there's some of that might be free, or minimal charges. Even the lifelong learning, the Center for Lifelong Learning, some of their classes are super cheap, some are free, some are a little bit more expensive, kind of depending on the experience you're having. Yeah.
All right, we have a couple more questions from the audience here. Are you offering only asynchronous classes for those of us who live out of state? Sorry if this has been previously addressed. I also was out for a bit in the beginning, so I don't know if we talked about it.
No, I don't think we touched on that. So we do offer both synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous meaning you have to be here at a certain time. So I'm not sure if, Morgan, when you were taking some of your classes, were there times you had to meet, like 6 to 9 on Wednesday nights, and that's typically a synchronous course. An asynchronous one is you can do anytime you want. And there still are deadlines, and it's still within the cadence of the semester, whether it's 8 weeks or 16 weeks, and you still have to meet deadlines, but it's kind of really on your time. I guess I'd ask Morgan, what's your experience on the synchronous versus asynchronous in the MPA? Because I think there was a mix at the time you were taking.
Yes, it was definitely a mix. I kind of typically enjoy doing things on my own time. That way I'm kind of mapping out my schedule and knowing exactly what I should do and what not to do. But I feel like having it being synchronized is also a way of having me become a little disciplined, if you will. So it kind of trains me as well to kind of make sure I'm on top of my schoolwork. So it was a mixture, and I enjoyed the hybrid version of it, but I haven't been able to be in a program where it was completely on my own. But I think that hybrid mix gave me that discipline I was looking for to be able to complete the program. So
Thanks.
I think success in those classes too is knowing before you're in them, what is my time going to be like? Do I have the flexibility, or are these classes going to be offered and cohorted and all those different things? So we really try to prepare students for what their expectations will be when it comes time to taking those classes. But yeah, I think it really does vary. Some students love that structure. They want to be in a Zoom with a professor that they can see lecturing to them, and others completely want to be independent on their own. So it really does vary. All right, we have a question for Morgan and Kevin. How has your online experience as it relates to getting access and control over your learning made you think about what we could do for high school students or adult learners to help those folks get access to non-traditional learning experiences?
That's a good question, because now that we are moving into this technology world here, it's like, you know, the high school students are kind of tapping into this. And like I said, that discipline, some high school students don't have. But I think with some things you can kind of take away from is maybe logging on to, and I believe Brad spoke of this with some of the networks that he was kind of speaking of earlier, but you know, you can kind of use some other educational apps like, you know, TEDx, TED Talks, things like that, YouTube, just to kind of make it more personal for the high school students, obviously. But as far as the adult learners, what do you think, Kevin? Because that's a really hard question.
So I'm gonna age my journey here a little bit, because you know, I think one of the interesting things for me is I actually completed an online learning program that was probably one of the earliest online degree programs. And the challenge there is that they weren't all following the same level of accreditation. And, you know, over the last 15 to 20 years, you know, there's a lot of disparaging positions on online learning in general. I mean, up until even 2 years ago, I mean, I talked to, you know, educators and education administration in the K through 12 community that just were absolutely against online learning. And, you know, I think, you know, a couple points there, you know, again, the discipline and the intent. And I think when people make that decision to go back to school and use the online learning, there's a personal commitment that they're making that choice for them. You know, when I went to school the first time, I went into a program, commercial art and graphics was going to be, you know, come in advertising and marketing. And that was all predicated on because of the fact that I could draw and I, you know, have an artistic side and whatnot. But where I'm going with this, not to chase this too far around the bushes, you know, the evolution of online learning and the validation of the learning experience that has transitioned in the last 15 years has been remarkable. And I think what's really a benefit right now for, you know, both young people and non-traditional students alike is that this COVID experience has forced people to adopt this method of education delivery in a way that they can't dispute it. And to the extent that I think you're going to see more and more opportunities coming online at the K through 12. I mean, look at all the different K through 12 academies that are popping up, as well as the opportunity that exists for, you know, college and universities to tap into a market share that is outside of maybe their normal geographic reach and still provide that education. So I'm a strong proponent for online learning, especially when it's structured correctly and you have that interpersonal connection with the faculty and staff. And more importantly, you have that connection with the other students within your coursework. So whether that's at the university or college level or at the K through 12 level, I think there's been a huge step in validating this learning process.
Kevin, you brought up a good point there about accredited schools or accredited education. We run into that every once in a while where a student is going to school, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit institution, and they don't really do their research and kind of look into that school enough to know, what's behind that education and how that school is operating. Even if it's a good education, sometimes you got to make sure that the school is accredited. In some of our programs here, we see it particularly in our clinical lab science programs, that there's plenty of schools out there that aren't accredited, but you can still get a certificate or your licensure in the medical field with that degree. But if you wanted to transfer that into a 4-year degree or a 4-year institution, those credits just don't count. So it's almost like starting over again. So, making sure that you're doing your research on what is behind the degree and making sure you're being intentful about your path and understanding what's going on is really important, because it could burn you in the long run, not making sure that you're doing your homework before you start that journey. And you might even see that too, Steph, don't you? I mean, there must be other non-credit stuff out there that are pay and they'll give you a certificate almost.
Absolutely everywhere. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And I think that goes to, though, like I was saying, there are some trainings that no matter how convenient online is, at the end of the day, there are going to be some trainings, especially through my department, that just have to be face-to-face. Whether it is, we're going to show you how to use this piece of equipment, we would prefer that you actually touch the equipment. You know, a lot of that is, and that does, it bothers us when we see some of those that are very, very hands-on trainings delivered online for $99 or whatever it is. And you know, there's people who are going to do it, but they're not going to get the training that they need. So that's kind of the flip side that we struggle with. But at the same time, we, like Kevin said, COVID was a really good push on some trainings that we all just kind of said, no, there's no way you could do that online. COVID came and you said, we have to find a way, because these people still need this training. And if they don't, their certification will lapse, or if they don't, they can't continue whatever their career is because it's a requirement of their job. So we have seen a lot of shifting of trainings that we didn't think we would see. So that is really, really exciting for us in our department.
You know, Stephanie, you brought up that there's some coursework that people have to be hands-on and in person, you know, and I'm going to contrast that with another point. I think with the online learning and what with some of the interaction I had with some of the other students in the class, one of the things that I was kind of compelled to consider was, when you're in class and you're in a group setting, you always have that one person that's, they're vocal, they're always answering whatnot. And you always have those ones that aren't willing to speak up or actually participate in that group. And that was one of the things that I thought was nice about the way the forums and whatnot are set up with some of the coursework that we took, is it gave everybody an opportunity to come into that and engage in that and express themselves without having any of that angst or fear of exposing their own vulnerabilities in the in-person setting. And I don't know if there's any truth to that thought, but it seems to me that there's a potential that you're going to get more engagement and more participation out of people in that format than you would in some cases in the in-person format in group settings in the classroom.
Sure, absolutely. And I think like a discussion board is a good example, like you said, of people coming out of their shell that they might stay reserved if they were in the classroom setting. I also think another plus to something like that is it's that old thought that sometimes it's better to think before you speak, right? So when you're reading a discussion board and you see something, instead of just shooting out an answer that you might just blurt out in class, you can actually think about it for a second and then maybe think about it in a different angle and then reply in more of a multifaceted way versus I'm just going to tell you one side, here's my opinion, and then I might regret it. I think there's a lot of really nice benefits. And I've been in classes online where I really enjoy just reading all the discussions, where if you're in the class, you may just tune out for a hot minute and not even hear what the person said because you're thinking about what you're going to have for lunch. But if you're reading the discussion answers, you might learn something that you wouldn't have learned.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more question from the audience. Did everyone have an aha moment that told them it was the right time to continue their educational journey? Or did some of you just jump in a little bit hesitant, not sure if you were 100% making the right choice and just going for it anyway? Did anyone speak to their experience on that?
I'll go with that. I have found over the years that there is always a reason not to do it. And in looking back, I should have been framing that in the sense that it's always the right time, because it always goes by quicker. And when you're looking back at it, that 8 weeks or 16 weeks, it's over before you know it. It's not as painful as it is. And all of those reasons that seem to come up and detour you or from proceeding. So I would say that there's never not a good time to start.
And can I just add too, I think we used to always think about our education as, if you're going to go into higher ed, you're out in 4 years and you're done. And that's just not the case anymore. We're living in a time where, people are working longer. We're working way past what retirement used to be. So we have a lot longer in our career. We have so many more years of learning. And so it's just more common for our education doesn't ever really stop. And, not to not to jump back on continuing ed, but that's kind of what we're there for too, so that the education will never, it won't end. And I think I saw that in our chat. Stephen, I don't know what the last name was, but he made a comment about, when you're done learning, you're done, or when you're through learning, you're through. Like, that's true. Like, you have that choice. So we really have to recognize that higher education doesn't just mean 4 years anymore. It means 4 years, maybe another 2, maybe a certificate after that. Maybe you jump into an online continuing ed class, whatever it is, but it's never really a time to stop learning.
I want to jump in and agree, because I feel like I was kind of that one individual that came right out of high school, of course, and was just like, okay, I'm going to finish in 4 years. And I did. I mean, I feel like I finished in 4 years, and then I continued on to my graduate program. And what I guess motivated me to continue was because I wasn't satisfied with, just finishing in 4 years. I wasn't ready. I mean, essentially we feel like we should finish in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did, I was not happy. And I felt like I didn't learn, or I didn't experience enough in the program. And it was a great program. It was just like me. I wasn't ready. So once I did finish, and then I went on to my grad program, and I finished in 2 years, it gave me 6 years. So just to your point, Stephanie, like 4 years essentially isn't really enough. And that's really what kind of pushed me to go forward. And honestly, now that I am working and I'm in my career, I want to go back because it's like, I still don't feel like I know enough. So I don't know, like that's kind of my thing here.
I guess I would add, but don't get burnt out either. I've had a long educational journey. I got my undergraduate, then a master's, and a second master's, working on my doctorate. I'm trying to finish up the dissertation, but I'm almost to the point where I'm just exhausted. Sometimes you just need to take a break, and it's okay to say, all right, life is happening. I need to focus my attention over here on this for just a short time, whether it's a new career, a new marriage, a new baby, ailing parents, or, life situations happen. Northern, and I'm sure other schools do it too, is where, you're still active for a year. At the undergraduate level, you're still active in our system for a year. So you can take a semester or two and really just sign back up for classes like you were always here. Like, there's no barriers, no anything to that. At the graduate level, it's 3 years, because we know life happens for, the older you get and the more mature you get, things are going to happen. So at the graduate level, you can stop out for 3 years at any point, come back and just register for classes like you were always here. So make sure you're taking care of yourself too along that journey. So I think
that's what they don't tell you. That's what they don't tell you. And that's what they don't normalize, and what they probably should normalize. And that's where I was speaking to, because I was going straight and maybe it would have been beneficial for me to it would have been probably more beneficial for me to maybe take a break in between, get some work experience, and come back. I mean, you know what I mean? So I definitely agree with what you're saying.
And I think not everything that we continue to learn has to be professional development either. There's a lot of personal development angles that you're still learning, and it's adding to your life, but it's adding it more at a personal level versus professional, which ultimately will help you in your profession probably in the long run, but personal development is just as important.
Absolutely. And even the conferences, when you're in your industry, you're going and you're learning things there too. So you can take those experiences and bring them along with you. For our degree seeking side, like I think I mentioned earlier, we have credit for prior learning. So it's really not credit for prior doing. So we're not giving you credit for just doing your job. If you're an accountant, just doing that stuff. But if you went out and tried to better yourself, or you went to conferences, or you're just doing it on your own through all those other resources, like you said, Morgan, that are online, you can take the things that you've learned outside of school, put it in a portfolio and apply for those credits and apply it towards your degree. So we do accept everything that you did learn. And most schools have that for adult students.
Last thing before I know we move on here, but
that's all right.
conferences you mentioned, I think that's a great learning tool. Because learning and education is not always textbook. I mean, we can read a textbook till our eyes bleed, right? But sometimes you have to interact with the people that you see yourself in the role in. And so that aspect of learning, I feel like, is how I kind of learn most. I'm not really a person that will pick up a book all day long and read and try to learn as much as I can, but I also need to be interacting with the person that I feel could teach me the ropes of the of the role, essentially. And conferences, I've taken advantage of a lot of awesome conferences, and I have learned so much. And I think that aspect of learning is a lot of times people don't, they don't interact like that. They just technically log onto the computer and read articles all day long. So I think take advantage of conferences. And I know, like, we're shifting into this new virtual learning, but there are also some new virtual conferences, and they're interesting. So take advantage of that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right, so we made it through all of the audience questions. I just wanted to take a minute here and say thank you to all the active participation that we've had from everyone tonight. It's been really great. We had some awesome questions that I think really furthered the discussion. At this point, do any panelists have anything else that they would like to add or closing statements?
I guess I'll go quick, and then I'm sure everybody has something there. This panel is pretty awesome. But really, like, in continuing ed, our biggest goal is to stay relevant with what we're offering. So not just the topics, but also how we're delivering it. And so that's kind of the biggest thing for us is this going to help somebody in their career? Is it going to help them up in the UP? Is it going to help them transfer somewhere else? But how can we do that in a way that's not going to interfere with their day-to-day life? And if it does interfere with their day-to-day life, how can we do it so it's a very minimal interference, just a short one? Because we do recognize, especially in the UP, we have a lot of small businesses. So if you want to upskill your employee and you have 4 of them, if you send one to continuing ed for a day or 2 of training, you now have 3 people working, but there's still 4 jobs. So we completely recognize that. And, that's obviously where the online learning comes into play, because that person could still be in their office, and when there's breaks, they're there. And but anyways, it's just that relevance factor that's so important to us.
And to continue on that step a little bit, I'd say also learn how you want to learn. There's plenty of opportunities out there. I know we focus quite a bit on online learning today, just because that's what the Global Campus and Extended Learning kind of is all about, and reaching out. But there are plenty of opportunities for in-person learning, hybrid, like Morgan talked about. You can have some days on face-to-face and then some finish up the rest of the work online. So learn the way you want to learn. Don't force yourself into something that you're not going to enjoy, because then you will stop out. Then you won't finish. Mm-hmm. So make sure you're doing it for the right reasons and how you want to learn, because everybody learns a little bit different. And I think you have to learn in the way that you do best.
Yeah.
Carly, I guess I would offer that if somebody is considering going back to school for either continuing ed or degree seeking, to not go into it thinking that they have to have it all figured out. One of the things that I found, and I guess I'm gonna pump the tires a little bit of everybody there at the university, the support, questions, seemingly simple things that you might be a little bit even embarrassed to even ask to help navigate. The staff have been fantastic. The advisors, the faculty, everybody made it very clear that their goal was to see me reach my end goal, and the support and the cheerleading that's gone on through the last couple of years has been not only very much appreciated, but it made it a lot easier to try to navigate that whole process, because for some people it can be intimidating, and it's time consuming and whatnot, and the folks in the Global Campus have made it extremely easy to come back and to get this done. So
well, thank you for that. We're here for you. We want you to succeed. It's our goal for you to succeed. So happy to help any way we can. Morgan, do you have any closing thoughts you want to share?
I would just agree with what Brad said. You know, learning in the way that you learn, knowing that, I think is a very important aspect when you do go to return to online schooling, or, you know, taking an online class, going back to get a degree, because that will obviously, you'll be able to accept the information and what's given to you when you know exactly how you know, essentially learn, because you'll just kind of doze off. But yeah, I would definitely agree with what Brad said. Just absolutely being receptive to how you learn and knowing that, and going with that when you do continue your education.
All right, I think that's all we have for the panelists. Kylie, if you have any closing thoughts. Thank you.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you. That was a great conversation. So I appreciate all of you joining us, and to everybody who tuned in, thank you very much. I just dropped the link in the chat one more time if you want to get signed up for our March 10th event. We'll be talking to a panel of some education professionals. So that will be an interesting conversation as well. So please join us. And also, we'll be sending out a short survey after this, so please take the time to let us know what you thought of this event, and if you have any other ideas for future topics. We always like to hear what you want to hear, so please let us know that way. And I also will be choosing one person to win a really awesome alumni t-shirt from tonight's attendees. So keep your eye out on your email too. I'll be choosing someone tomorrow and sending over an email. And if you have any follow-up questions, if you think of anything, just email us at alumni@nmu.edu, and we can pass along the information to whoever is most relevant. And then follow us on social media. Keep in touch with the NMU Alumni Association, Global Campus. We all want to hear from you. So keep in touch with us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, everybody.
Go Cats.
Thank you.
Bye.